Back of that, modern South Africa was founded on the principles of justice and fairness, and the center of that are inalienable human rights. We have a right to security, to good education, and ultimately to dignity as people. But according to any economic measurement, dignity remains elusive to so many. Where exactly has government failed the country? Shenilla Mohamed, she is the Executive Director of Amnesty International South Africa. Shenilla, I don't know if you saw that story that we just ran by Ngeba and Hlanganiso in the Eastern Cape, where residents who desperately need to cross a river to get to school or get their groceries are locked in a plastic drum and rolled across a fast-flowing river with no ventilation. It's utterly inhumane. What on earth are we looking at and thinking about so many years later? I mean, it makes one really question whether human rights really are being upheld in this country, despite our Bill of Rights.
Good morning, Annika, and good morning to your viewers. I mean, absolutely, it's a horrifying story, and the fact is that all those people who enter that drum are putting their lives at risk because anything can happen at any point, and they should never be put in a position where they have to take such action. It's a responsibility of the state as the main duty bearer to ensure the safety, dignity, and of all of its people, but also to ensure that infrastructure and other needs are given to the people. So they should be a bridge. They should be a way for the people to cross over safely. And yet it's not even part of the priority list of the state. I mean, the fact that your reporter could not even get a response tells us just how little human life is valued in this country.
Shenilla, in terms of human rights day to day, and we were talking to a historian who was saying it really should be called Sharpeville Day again because it was about having to carry a passbook around, which is a complete violation of so many people's dignity at the time. In terms of human rights, how far have we actually come, or did we make slight progress and then start rolling backwards with the advent of state capture?
Well, I think, Annika, of course, we made progress, definitely. I mean, the freedom of this country was massive progress. The fact that millions and millions of people were allowed to live and speak, without apartheid's sort of oppression over them is massive progress. But then, after 1994, what happened was that the lives of those that were previously disadvantaged by apartheid were not given the priority it deserved. And so therefore now, all these years later, we are sitting with the majority of the people in this country who do not have their basic human rights. And, we are talking about things like water, sanitation, children should not be falling in pit latrines and dying in excretion. We're talking about a quality education. We are still sitting with a totally unequal education system where our children, the majority of our children, don't see a future through education. Again, our health services are really unequal. If you can afford medical aid, wonderful. If you can't, then, you're at the mercy of a dysfunctional health system. So, while, yes, there were strides made in acquiring freedoms, and of course, our constitution is amongst the best in the world, but the reality of the people on the ground has, in some instances, really, deteriorated because COVID came along, and that even exacerbated the situation. So, we have a lot of work to do, and unfortunately, corruption has come in, and that has taken away a lot of the resources that would have been used to uplift the lives of people and give them the dignity that they deserve.
Shenilla, in terms of the Constitution promising that South Africa belongs to all who live in it and we all have the same basic human rights, does this extend to foreign nationals or migrants? Because we've seen xenophobia rearing its head again, and it seems to be linked to this inequality.
Well, I think, Annika, yes, there is an element of it that is linked to the inequality, where, the asylum seekers, refugees, and migrants, when they come into this country, they go straight into poor areas where the people there are already scrambling for meager resources. So that is one part of the problem. I think the second part of the problem is the fact that these genuine asylum seekers and refugees are not getting the services that they are entitled to under both international law as well as our own constitution, in that, when they arrive and they are genuine asylum seekers, they're entitled to certain protections under the law, and they're entitled to paperwork that allows them to operate in this country. That is not happening. And what's happening is that these people are now being made vulnerable. And I think the third and most worrying aspect is a vigilantism that has now taken hold, and the impunity with which these people operate. And again, it's not always about the meager resources, although that plays a big part. It's also criminal elements. It's also government officials and politicians that are scapegoating foreign nationals in order to gain support from a population that is drowning in inequalities. And so, there's a number of factors to this. And, I think that at the end of the day, it all boils down to the fact that the state has failed, not only the people of this country, but those that come in genuinely seeking protection and wanting, to be given their rights under international law. And then, of course, the politicians that really are using this vulnerable group in order to either make excuses for their own failures or to stay in power. And I think the whole situation is horrendous.
Well, a day of fun, but also it's sorely needed as a day of reflection too. Thank you so much to Shenilla Mohamed of Amnesty International.